Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do a get ready with me style video where I'm going to do an in-depth makeup look, but this is mostly about the topic I want to chat about today. So if you are interested in anything I'm using, I will list it below so you know what's up. But yeah, this was a video I wanted to make for a while because I want to share with you something exciting happening that I think is going to be inspiring to others, or at least like spark a really interesting conversation about work culture, hustle culture, being an entrepreneur, because I have come to the decision to quit my job to pursue my dreams. I always smile a little bit when I say that because I'm both excited and slightly embarrassed by it because it's a bit vulnerable to be like, I'm gonna try and do something that could fail. I mean, I really hope it doesn't, and I really hope if I put enough energy into it that everything will fall into place. But yeah, long story short, quitting my job to pursue my passions. And I really want to share with you the journey of how I got here and why I'm choosing to do this. And yeah, I just really hope that this connects with people. So if you're interested in hearing about this, please stay on and listen. It's going to be interesting conversation. I'm just skimming the surface today. Unless I get really into it, we'll see. But I'm going to tell you straight to the point that what I'm doing with my time away from working, I would like to become an online content creator. I really hate the term content creator, so I need to find some other term for myself that feels more like aligned. But I really want to have this little corner of the internet that is all about calm, witchy vibes, beauty, and I mean beauty in like all its magical and colorful forms. And I'm also writing a novel. The novel part's more like the deep passion project. The makeup is more the everyday joy. And I feel like in this day and age, we're at this really exciting point where people can do this. You can make your passions like a living off of it. And like YouTube is a great platform for that specifically. I'm going to start talking. I'm going to do my makeup and we're going to get into this fun conversation. I'm going to start sort of like timeline wise. I think like COVID is a really useful measuring tool for time now. And I think there's been a shift in general through the populace since COVID of like really reevaluating how we're living our lives. We're in late stage capitalism. And things are energetically chaotic, and that type of energy can really move into something good if we make it to. But unfortunately, like since the world's moving again quickly, since COVID's over, like we're kind of going back almost to the extreme of like go, 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 hustle culture. And so anyway, I think COVID's a really interesting marker for conversations like this because a lot of people just shifted the way they're thinking about work and their lives and life. For some like reference of like me as a person, I was a very creative child, I would say. Like I enjoyed many types of creative things. I was really into acting. When I was young, I wanted to be an actor, a child actor. I wrote a lot as a kid. I wrote these horror books called Scream Your Head Off. They were so good. I still have them. Gems. And I was just a really creative kid. And my parents nurtured that. And, I got lessons. I got guitar lessons. I went to an arts high school, went to uni for English Lit. I guess in like university, it's like you start to think, okay, why am I going to school, right? And I never was like, I'm going to school for a job. For one thing, it felt kind of dumb because like that was a time, it was 2011 when I started uni, like things were shifting. You didn't really need a university degree to get a job. So yeah, I went to uni for English Lit, and the intention always was to just really learn. I was like really into school and stuff. So I loved novels, loved reading, and really wanted to be a writer at that time. It wasn't really a job like that felt like a career path. I didn't want to be a journalist or anything like that. I wanted to write novels and poetry. So went to uni for that. And at the same time, I was in my band, which I started in high school, and really started to get into that, really serious about getting better at my instrument. I played guitar and did singing. I say it like that because like I'm not a trained singer, but I sang. And yeah, I was just really in a creative place in university, and it was a really formative time. Started playing a lot of shows downtown Toronto, all girl band. We were so cool. And then I was done uni. And I remember doing my last exam, and I was just alone. I didn't know anybody in that class, and I stepped out into the world. It was a gray day, and I was just like, now what? What am I gonna do? Like, I don't want to go get a job. I don't want to climb a corporate ladder. Like, but I know that I'm supposed to go get a job now. And I was just like, as many young people like at 21, 22 are like, what am I gonna do? So I was like, I just love playing music. I want to see what happens with the band. And for a job, I just went into serving. And it was good money, you know, you get your tips and stuff, and it's flexible. You can take time off for shows, whatever. And I also wanted to travel, so I did the post-uni travel and all that. That's just like setting the stage as a person who's just like not interested in like a traditional career. Whenever I'd like try and work on a resume and send it randomly to like companies, I don't even know what I was applying for. I was just like, I should be doing this, and it was a waste of time. But I really don't regret anything I did as a young person. At my core, I think I've just always known that I didn't want to work in any kind of traditional career. There was a point like a little bit later in my 20s, like a couple years ago, I just felt actually really jealous of people who just knew like, oh, I want to be a teacher or something, because it was really laid out for you if you wanted to do something like that or something really skills-based. And if you were interested in it, I was so just like, I wish I knew what I wanted to do, like to actually make a living. But I was still living at home at that time, so there wasn't like high pressure with like trying to pay rent and bills yet. Being a server though is not an easy job. Anybody who's worked in hospitality and restaurant industries knows it's a lot of freaking work. It's a lot on the body, and the environments are way too often more stressful than they need to be. We're serving burgers and fries, not saving lives. So, I mean, I really didn't like being a server. I'm at my core pretty introverted, and like, I hated dealing with people and their stupid, like, complaints, the abuse I had as a server, the amount of people just yelling at me over like, you know, a forgotten sauce on a plate. Like, it was just like one of those experiences that solidified to me like why I don't want to work for other people, because I just will see the way things are being run, and it bothers me to my core when things are mismanaged and there are toxic workplaces. I would complain about, or not complain, I would like tell bosses about problems with men in the workplace, and like they wouldn't take it seriously, just things like that. Abusive bosses, lots of people on cocaine, alcoholics. Anyway, it's not an easy job, and I knew I did not want to be like balancing serving and doing creative things at the same time. So long term, I knew like I'm not going to be a server forever. It's too much for me. If you've worked, you know, it's a lot of work. All the respect to everybody in the hospitality industry. Then I'm like 25. This is the summer before COVID, and a couple things happened in this summer that kind of like started a shift in me. And one big thing was a friend of mine was like, but I remember we were like sitting in this park in downtown Toronto, and she's like, I'm like getting into witchy stuff. I was like, what? Witchy stuff? And at that time it was more, she's approaching it from a traditional Wiccan lens, but her and her partner were getting interested in witchcraft. And it ignited this spark in me that I remember when I was in grade 7, how I made my mom took me to the Wicca store in our neighborhood, and I got all these books on witchcraft, because I was like, oh my God, being a witch is a real thing. It's not just in Harry Potter. So I was like, oh my God, you're into witchy stuff? Like, And I think she was like, it's one of those things you tell people and they're like, what? So I'll expand on that more because some of you are like, what? Some of you are probably like, yes, bitch. And anyway, it's like, okay, I want to know more about this. Like, tell me more, educate me. And I got really into witchy stuff the summer before COVID. Started listening to a podcast, which is my favorite podcast of all time. It's Pam Grossman's The Witch Wave. Formative podcast for me in these coming years. Just really starting to learn what like being a witch is in like this day and age. And what's so lovely about it is there are no rules around it. This is a spirituality or a religion that is yours to make. There are no specific rules unless you're like going on the traditional Wiccan path. But for me now, as I've learned more about it, it's really about the way I see it is connecting with nature more. I see it as an opportunity to embrace one's womanhood, for me anyway. The dark feminine is a huge like sort of archetype I like to engage with. I see it as thinking that we don't have all the answers to the universe and that there's a mystery behind it that we don't understand. I like to pull tarot. I like to journal. I like to honor the cycles of the year, the moon cycles. To me, it's just like a way to like almost like sink back into your body and your spirit and out of your mind. That's the simplest way I can explain how I engage with witchcraft. I believe in like sort of taking a step back to the old ways. And I think broadly as a culture, especially Western culture, there's a lot to be learned and engaged with about that, I hope that resonates with anybody. I'd love to talk more about that. And honestly, like even to this day, I feel a little ox saying things like that. Like people aren't going to understand it or they're going to think I'm weird. But hey, we are the weirdos, mister, right? So freaking just like embracing these sides of myself, I felt like I kind of forgot. Apparently that's a very common journey when people come to witchcraft in adulthood. It's like you're really coming back to yourself as a child, which I think is your often more authentic self before society and demands get the better of you, I think a big thing we can learn in our adult lives is finding that childish energy. So that's what witchcraft did for me. So that summer I started getting into that. I started to think about things from a more spiritual lens and like, what did I want from my life? More spiritually. And creative work always felt spiritual, no matter what it was, like writing, acting, the band, like art. Art is magic. Makeup is magic. I love to say that. And then also my band broke up that summer for various reasons that are quite complicated. 10-year run. We went on tour. We wrote an album. I felt like it was time to leave that project behind. Yeah, so COVID hit and I'm 26 years old. And of course, like restaurants get shut down. So I don't have a job, don't have my band. And all I had was my new spark around witchcraft. And so beginning of COVID, I was doing like tarot every day and stuff. And one thing that's really important that I forgot to mention was that summer that I discovered witchy things, the band broke up, I also started getting really into makeup. I saw like this video on YouTube that was like a 5-minute makeup look. I was like, holy shit. I was like, bronzer. That's what it does. Wow, this look is so pretty. So I started getting into makeup then. And I showed that video to my mom. She's like, wow, I love this. And we just started watching YouTube videos. And that's when it just started. So COVID hit. I'm sort of just getting started into loving makeup. Band's over. Don't have a job. That's where we're at. So COVID, what a time, right? Like at the beginning of COVID, it was scary. I remember like I had no money because, by the way, I had recently moved out with my partner. I was just really facing like, oh, this is what it's like when all your money goes to rent and bills. So it was like fun. And then I lost my job. I was in this new apartment, this one here, and we didn't yet know the Canadian government was going to like give people money to live their lives. But I was like crying. I was like, what am I going to do? And, everybody at the beginning of COVID was like terrified, and also it was so scary. Beginning of COVID, a very universal experience. However, then there was that side of COVID at the beginning where everything was quiet. There was less cars on the road. People were turning to things like making bread. People were having fun Zoom calls with their friends and family. People really started to see how much they valued their relationships. Like, as much as we were separated, it made us really realize like what means a lot to us. And then there was work from home. Work from home started, and people liked that flexibility of being at home. You could do your laundry. You could even have your kids. Work from home is revolutionary in that it's so much better, especially for women in the workplace or people with families. Like, you could have a baby and work from home, you know? Not that having a baby isn't a full-time job, but you know what I mean? People with chronic illnesses, they can work from home. People who are menstruating people and have a time of the month for almost a week where they feel like crap, they can work from home. The work from home model has a lot of problems, but it has a lot of benefits. By problems, I just mean like the still expectation of being 24/7 practically available. It was a really interesting time because we started to like reshift our thinking over like, what are we doing with our lives? What means a lot to us? And what is work culture? We're really getting past this outdated model of like 9 to 5, like really crazy long hours. This makeup looks kind of all over the place. I'm like adding a bit of color here, adding a bit of color there. So I'd love to know down below like what your thoughts are on that. Like, how did COVID, at least the beginning of it, like shift your thoughts on your job and your life? Like, because I did feel like there was this sort of universal feeling around some aspects of it. We just sort of went inward. We live in this world of so much information, so much doing. Like, we still need a slowdown. We need something that in the future they're going to call the Great Slowdown. You know, this period where we all just went, and I'm not even kidding, just frolicked in gardens and made art. COVID at the beginning was, this time of slowdown. I was doing tarot like every day. And then my mom and we started to have so much fun with makeup. We weren't going anywhere. I wasn't like working in a restaurant. So I'll pop up some looks from this beginning time. Like, there was that energy of the amateur, the energy of the fool, the energy of a child. It was so much fun. Like, we'd walk our dogs and we'd like make makeup challenges for ourselves, and we'd show up with this crazy eyeshadow. And like, at that time it was just like, once I had the government support and like there was this little bit of just like really fun energy happening with creatively anyway. Then I started working again on and off as bars and restaurants opened and closed and opened and closed, but I still had this time and space to tap into a new type of creativity, which was with makeup. I think it was my mom who had this idea. She kind of said it. I think at first we were thinking of making a podcast, but like at that time I was into witchy stuff. I was expressing this urge to like write a book. Oh yeah, in COVID I started writing a different book than what I'm working on now. But my mom was like, what if we like had this platform and, you know, you could share about your book when it's out, and like, you know, she was really encouraging about that. And then like I was all into the witchy stuff, and just like, what if we just started a channel and just like put all these things together? And I was like, yes, let's do it. So we started our channel, Angels on Broomsticks. And our first video was out in October of 2020, which is a magical time for me because autumn is when I feel like most myself, most inspired. And we did this makeup look inspired by autumn leaves. And it really felt like there was a click happening of like putting all the things I was loving together. We would do episodes, and we still do, but a bit less so, of like talking about witchy stuff, and was really trying to like mesh it all together a lot. And then 2021, I get this opportunity to start through my like best friend, oldest friend, through her family, like this opportunity to work at a music festival that I had loved as a child. Like, anyway, I was really excited for this opportunity, so I took it, and it was just at first for the summer, and things were still shut down. So it was one of those drive-in events. Anyway, it was really nice because I mostly worked from home, and I was still like having the time to do the channel, and my Instagram started taking off around the same time and started getting a lot more followers, and the makeup thing started to feel really real. There's a couple opportunities to make like $100 through makeup, and I was kind of like, hey, maybe this could be a thing. But then as like COVID started to end, that energy I was talking about earlier just shifted. We moved away less from the work from home model. A lot of people had to go back into the office, and then things were like back to what they were before COVID. It felt like we didn't learn anything from the slower pace, and in fact it felt like amplified. Like all these companies are like, go, go, go. So instead of working from home, I was mostly in the office moving forward. I respect that for some people they need people in office, but I guess that's when things started to get really overwhelming for me, because I'd be spending so much time in an office in front of a computer, and I didn't have that flexibility to work from home anymore. I would try and squeeze in like doing some fun makeup looks before going into the office, but like it was always rushed. And then I'd end up late for work, or I'd have to wake up early and lose out on sleep, which just really messes with me if I'm losing on sleep, as it does with many people. Sleep is so incredibly important. So that was just the beginning where things started to feel like the balance was lost. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Don't get me wrong. I've learned so much from it. It was just like, but it was very busy. And 1 month of the year, July, is like all the festival. It's a month-long festival. So I'd be working really hard in office on the computer, like getting everything ready for the event. And then the event would be all on-site work all of July. And it was like long hours, like outside in the sun. And it was just a lot of work. I felt like I couldn't enjoy the summer because I was just working so much. And then by the time August rolled around, it was like wrapping up everything, lots of wrap-up reports. And then I was just physically drained. So it was like the lost gems of the year. I call like July a lost gem, because when we were kids and we had summers off, it was this beautiful time of rest and relaxation and fun. And then as adults now, we work through it. We're stuck in offices, and losing the ability to enjoy the earth is something that is spiritually damaging for everybody. And yeah, this was kind of just like my first time really experiencing 9 to 5 type of work, office work. It's a lot. Like I can't do it all. Some people can do it all and balance, but I couldn't. And then I felt like I was losing my love for the makeup, because it felt like I was just trying to make something happening that wasn't happening. I just kind of started to lose the joy in it. Not to mention I was just filled with doubts. Like what the hell? Getting into the beauty scene on like YouTube and Instagram, like part of me was like, that's just like shallow. You need to do something like better with your life. And I had a lot of guilt, and it was a tough couple years where I started just to feel really lost, really burnt out, and full of doubt, like every day. This was basically the time I really felt like, what the frick am I doing with my life? I was like 28, I guess. And, you have that looming feeling of 30, and there's always that pressure, whether if it's you're not in a relationship you wanted, or you're not at the career you wanted, or you don't have any money. It's like you start to feel like 30, oh, I have to be a real adult now, a real adult, which is just such a BS way of looking at life. But it's so ingrained, it's really hard not to feel that way. And you start comparing yourself to other people and where they're at. And I felt so just like lost. And this is when I was really jealous of people who just like knew what they wanted to do. I think this is just like my generation too. I call it the millennial malaise, or dissatisfied millennials. Like I was basically like in this feedback loop on TikTok too, of just like unhappy, burnt out millennials. And it wasn't helping me as much as it made me feel like validated with my feelings. It actually was like an energy that wasn't helping me. And I had to stop, like at some point later, I skipped through videos like that, because as much as I feel like justified, like I had to skip through it. because skip those videos because the energy just like isn't good for me. Like it just makes you start to feel really hopeless. It's just like also talking about millennials and all the crises they've seen, and like 9/11 was in our childhoods, and since then it's just been all these big world events, and we start to get inundated with so much just like trauma happening in the world. Meanwhile, the cost of living's crazy. Like that's another thing. I was like I wasn't making like a salary or anything. Like I was still like an hourly worker, and if I didn't work a week, like there's no money, right? So the cost of living was getting to me. I was just like in this feedback loop of like people just like really unsatisfied, burnt out, and lost too. But yeah, I was just like feeling like anybody who had their aspect of their life together that I didn't, like it's not like I was outwardly like jealous or petty or anything. It's just like I felt just like scared, really just scared. I remember just like being jealous of houses. Like I would walk past, go for walks, and I still kind of have this, like people who have houses, just be so jealous. And or even more specifically, people with gardens and backyards. Like I am to this day just so jealous. I'm trying to like shift that energy to be more like, oh, I'm inspired. One day I'll have a garden. One day I'll have a backyard. But you know, basically, long story short, the vibes were not vibing. I was still trying to make the makeup thing happening with my mom's channel, with my own Instagram. This was all before I started this channel too, and then my energy was just so scattered. I started listening to like this manifestation guru, Kathy Heller. She has some interesting things. She has taught me some things about like when you start to like follow your authenticity, like I do believe this, like things will fall into place when you start following the joy and intuition and authenticity. But some of her like podcasts like can be really intense and really make you feel like when you're not where you're at, there's really something you're doing wrong. And as much as I believe in some aspects of manifestation, I think there's so much some of these like manifestation gurus don't take into account, like especially just like the larger barriers for like non-white people, for example. It's just like there was a bit of a disconnect there. Like I wanted to take into account it all. I'm talking so much, doing all these little bits of my makeup. I'm only just getting to the eyeshadow now. If you're curious, I'm using the Pat McGrath Mothership 1. I remember like writing down, and I started to journal a little bit more, and I was writing down like, okay, we're going to do a practical career path, and like jotting down, like, what am I going to do? I could do event photography because I have some skills in that. I could get into digital marketing. I should look for a career. I applied to a few jobs, didn't hear back. The passion wasn't there. I wasn't interested in any of these things, but I felt like I had to choose it. And then I have always wanted to write a book, but I had this idea too that was sparked several years ago, and I found a note in my iPhone about it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to start writing this. And so I was dipping my toes into this story that has since emerged into a full plot, and I'm working on it now. But anyway, that didn't feel like a job. That just felt like something I really hoped I could do one day. And then the makeup stuff, I just started to get really into my head about, well, I don't want to be a beauty influencer. I'm not into the idea of brand trips and like being one of those people don't know if you're like lying to them. And there is some side of like, yeah, being an influencer, makeup, beauty creator, like I think that I don't feel aligned with. And that's why it took me so long to get where I'm at now. Then after a while of this really scattered, lost energy, I stumbled on, I guess you always stumble when you're on TikTok, but there's this, I'm going to say his last name wrong, but this guy, Christian Malarchuk, I should know how to pronounce his name, but he had this really sort of niche approach to talking to the dissatisfied people in jobs, and he was specifically like talking to like INFJ personality types and a couple other personality types. Now I find these personality types rather helpful, unlike astrology signs. Like I'm not big on astrology, or like Sagittariuses are all like this. I find the Myers-Briggs actually a very useful tool. So anyway, I'm an INFJ, and there's a lot of things Christian was saying that was like clicking. And it was less about like, oh, I'm just a burnt out millennial, and more about like really specific things I felt like I was struggling with. One in particular thing he said was like, INFJs tend to be generalists. They're people who aren't necessarily like have one thing they're really good at. They often like are really good or they're like good at a lot of things, but not like really good at one thing. And that really felt like me. Like I felt like I had so many interests, like as I've explained, like so many creative things I wanted to do. I felt like I had to choose one. I was really stuck in this, well, what's my job gonna be? What am I gonna do? You know? I felt like I had to make a choice. And he was saying how the job market, it is for specialists. Like you have a job and that's your job, you know, you're a teacher. And generalists, they are more suited for entrepreneurship roles. You need a lot of like skills to do it, especially like nowadays. You do need to have content creation. You don't need to, but like it's pretty useful to be able to do video edit, to know photography, to have your interest, to be good at speaking. Like, and I just felt like that was me. Like I knew that I knew I wanted to work for myself because like I said, like I hate having a boss, okay? Someone said this recently on TikTok. It was like, you have to ask daddy to go take a week off, you know? Gotta ask daddy if I can have time to myself. Gotta call in sick to daddy, you know? Or just like, you know, you're not calling the shots in your everyday life when you're working at a job for someone else's dream. Like, you have to do stuff for other people for their dream. And it's like, I'm tired of like working at what other people's visions and goals are. It feels really like exhausting. I don't even feel like there's one person's other dream that will feel perfectly aligned to my own thoughts and values, you know? And you're always dealing with like different personalities, and that's exhausting for an introvert. And I really knew I needed and wanted to work for myself. It's like, how am I going to do that? I don't want to be a beauty influencer. I can't just be a writer, you know? I can't just get back into music again and be a successful musician. It's like, how am I going to take all these things and make it a job? It's like, how can all this random creative energy be a job? But when Christian was talking about like entrepreneurship in general, and it's like, you actually can harness all this, not scattered energy, but interests and passion, and pair it with your own experiences and make a career out of that. Whether it's like, he became a life coach. Like, anyway, I feel like I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but I'm having trouble focusing and talking about this while doing makeup. But I am very passionate about this idea of honoring what your body is telling you, what your mind is telling you, and starting to get excited about the prospect of how can you take the things you love, how can you take your experiences and do something with it, especially if you're the type of personality like me where you feel like you don't fit into one job or you feel like you want to work for yourself. So this was last summer when I discovered Christian, and then he was offering this career catalyst course. I was like, yeah, I need this. At first I was like, am I just like falling into some weird manifestation style gurus, like weirdness, cultiness? But no, it wasn't like that at all. It was like mostly a self-directed course. And then also I had a coaching session with Christian. This course helped me really figure out that I can tie all the things I love together into some kind of job. And I think the biggest thing I felt with like my love for makeup and beauty was like, I'm like, how is this even aligning with my core values of like finding more spirituality in this life, finding more connection, slowing down, being somewhat anti-capitalist, you know, as much as like I buy these beauty products and stuff. Like, I think capitalism has really gotten out of control. Like, to me, it felt like I needed to do things that were aligned with that. And it's like, what does makeup have to do with that? I needed to find the click. And then what does that have to do with my desire for other creative projects? So there was something I really liked, where halfway through the course, you kind of find out your big why, where you piece together all your passions and interests and all that and create kind of a statement that you can return back to. And I do have to return back to this when I'm like forgetting myself if I get caught up too much. And so here's my big why. I'm going to share it with you because I want to talk about it. I think it might be inspiring to others. But what do I want to contribute to the world? So mine was resist capitalist frameworks of oppression by finding and creating magic, art, and community. What do I mean by like capitalist frameworks of oppression? To me, it felt like that return after COVID, this place where people felt lost, burnt out, unsatisfied. Meanwhile, we have this huge disconnect with wealth disparities throughout the world. Obviously, capitalism has a lot of systematic oppression going on with it, including oppression towards women, including oppression towards non-white people. This is built into the structure of our society. But I was like, how the heck am I going to do that through makeup and magic? So for me, it's like, not everyone has to be doing the big work of like being, I don't know, a politician or something. Like some of us have to do the small work. And by the small work, I mean the people kind of in the margins, just like living with, love and acceptance. And yeah, at my core, I do love like makeup and beauty and creative things. So it's like, how can I make those things mesh? Then when I had my meeting with Christian, I was still feeling a bit like, okay, well, I really want to write a book and I really like makeup. Like, how are these even like related? For me, I felt like I had to have this piece that was like, oh yeah, this is me. This is my big, reason. He's like, well, let's just like right off the bat. Well, those are both like forms of self-expression. It's like, well, yeah, they are. And then I kind of sat with that a bit more. I was like, wow, yes, they are. Self-expression, I think, is so important for people. If we didn't have self-expression, we wouldn't have art. We wouldn't have beauty. And I do think beauty is an important part of being human. So yeah, after I took that course and after I had my coaching session, I just felt more at peace. I felt like I was back in that energy a little bit of during COVID when I was taking a stab at that first writing of the book, when I was starting the channel with my mom. I just felt like a little bit more aligned. And I was journaling every day, and this was like in October. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to just really take a step back from work and try and focus on this. I'll go to part-time hours, that kind of thing. But then another job opportunity came up and I decided to take it. So now instead of having less work, I now had 2 jobs and was like at this place being like, I want to make the channels like a real potential career thing. I want to write this book. And that was in October. And then I had this new job, and it was kind of my first time being in a really more like serious, not corporate environment, but like, oh, this is like the Zoom meetings and the corporate jargon and the marketing jargon. And I was like, I'm glad I took this job because it was a learning experience, but it's a contract position and it's over at the end of May. So about a month into that job, I was like, okay, no, I can't do this. I can't do it all. I need a break. Yes, I need money. I need to live. I need that. But I was like, I can't keep trying to balance things. I can't. So then I was like, okay, this contract ends in May. I'm gonna quit my other job, the music festival job, because it was a lot of work. I wasn't prepared to do another crazy summer working this festival. I eventually got the courage to like be serious about it, to tell friends and family about it. That was really scary to tell some people because there is judgment. And I had this deadline or this idea that end of May, I'm going to do this. I'm going to just see what happens if I try and create this little space on the internet where I can share my creativity. I can share this idea that makeup is magical. I can share this idea that beauty can be something that's actually like empowering, self-expressive, and Doesn't have to be about buying the newest product, or as much as I'm a fucking makeup junkie, don't get me wrong. But like, what if I like, created this little inspiring space? I was inspired more by like creators on this platform. I'm sure Julia Adams. She's like just got this, she just seems so down to earth, and like her channel's got such a calm energy. And Hannah Louise Poston's super inspiring because she is also publishing a poetry book. It has this beauty channel. It's like, okay, beauty doesn't have to be shallow. It doesn't have to be all influencers and glossy skin. Like, it can be something that's so cool and witchy and self-expressive. And I found that reminder again. And I felt like I was returning back to what my mom and I's vision was at the beginning, just like this little cool corner of the internet. And yeah, you can start to feel real. You can make a living off this. If your channel gets big enough, if you find enough of amazing community, like I'll get into the nitty gritty of that with my journey forward, but I decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to try. End of May, I'm going to be done these contracts. I gave my notice at my other job, and I am just going to see what happens if I go with this 100%, because I've figured out a few things. I've figured out why it's aligned with my values. I've figured out that I cannot work under other people. I figured out through COVID I needed a slowdown. I need a work lifestyle that honors the cycles, that honors one's own cycles. 9 to 5 doesn't do that. It is 100% all the time, and that is not being a human. I think by living in a way that rejects that is already a small form of protest against this late stage capitalism. If you can find your peace, you are stepping away from this bullshit world we unfortunately live in, I gave my notice. I was really scared. I was really nervous. I don't know why, but I felt guilty about it. And also, just so you know, as you can imagine from my stories, like I don't have like a ton of savings. Like I have a little bit of money I've been able to save mostly from like gift money from family and stuff like that. So I have about like 8 months, as long as no emergencies happen, like 8 months, and then I'll have no money if nothing happens of it. But I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I can't keep living like this. I can't be burnt out. I can't be trying to be a creative human while like spending hours a day in front of a computer and then trying to go home and then be creative. I can't spend my summers working. I can't. So I'm going to try. So this is my long story. I want it to be quicker, but I have so much to say about this because I think it's about more than the personal. Though this is my personal story, I think this is a bigger story. I think this is about where we're at in our world. Anyway, my biggest thing is like we have to live in this space of authenticity and joy because it does spread, Whatever that is you're doing, I mean, as long as it's not hurting or harming others, I think that can only bring good things. So if you're living in that way, it's just gonna pave the way for a better world in general, even if it feels like selfish to do the things you love sometimes. And I don't know why it does. Maybe that's a woman thing. We feel guilty when we do things for ourselves a lot, but I just think that that's the way forward for me and broadly. And also, I'm going to be really committing to writing the book. I got a lot of traction with it. I meet with a friend once a month. Hey, Meg. We're both writing books and we're holding each other accountable. And at worst case, my thought is, okay, I've taken some time to myself to try. And I just really hope this has been inspiring conversation. If you have related to any of this, like, let me know. Yeah, I'd love to know your own journeys. Yeah, I guess when I made this decision to just like go full force, it really just felt like this knot in my chest just like undoing. No, it's not finding this one career that makes sense, that I can follow rules or guide. It is a risk. It is a journey. It's gonna be hard at times, and I'm scared. I still have doubts about it, but it's just like I said, I have to honor what feels good. It's like yoga with Adrian. If you do yoga with Adrian, find what feels good. That's another thing. We are all going to die one day. I don't want to have spent my life behind a computer. Though I am going to do a lot of computer work for this. But like, I don't want to have spent my life behind a computer every day, feeling exhausted, not being able to go out and step outside into the sun on a beautiful day because I have someone else's work to do. That's not what I signed up for. There are a lot of barriers in this world, very different for many other people, but there are things I want to be optimistic and say like things are changing. Like the way the world works, if we all make the right decisions, like I said, if we all move with a certain level of like joy and grace and authenticity, only good things will happen. Am I right? Am I right? Anyway, I'm just also really excited to have some months off that I can almost be in that childish energy again, where it's like a summer where you can do what you want. It's like that first summer I started the band where it's like you have the time and the sun is out and there's like this optimism. And yeah, I just love the idea that I can go outside when I want. It's a big thing for me. I feel like this video is very long. I hope you like my makeup look. Sort of a bit of grungy gold. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below. I would like to update you on my journey. I'd love to do more Get Ready with Me. It's just like talking about things like this. I can go on and on about capitalism or witches or makeup. So it's like, don't get me started. If any of you are entrepreneurs, I'd love to know a little bit about your journeys, or even if you're not an entrepreneur, but like how you found, if you found some like joy, especially in your like jobs or your everyday lives, like I want to know how. I want to spread the like inspiring energy. So please let me know about your stories, because stories are important. Everyone's story is important. And yeah, that's it for today. If you want to like, comment, and subscribe, all those things mean a lot and really help me on my journey. And yeah, until next time, I hope you find a little bit of magic in the meantime, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, witches.